tonight about St John's Church and about the Wesleyan movement in Swinton. We're at the site of St John's Church. It's been a very, very busy site over the years, a very busy group of people as well. And how this site's altered, how the building's altered, there's been so much going on over the years. John Wesley was an English cleric. He lived from 1703 to 1791, an evangelist, and he led a revivalist movement within the Church of England, and that's commonly known as Methodism. He travelled around and preached extensively, also through many places in South Yorkshire, and various places where he went, societies came along afterwards. So it is known that the Wesleyan movement existed in Swinton as early as 1802, and at that time they would meet in people's houses. Within St John's Church today there is a link directly back to the first church. I'll just mention that shortly, but the 8th of May 1815 was a key date, because that was the date when a group of Wesleyans actually met with the Earl Fitzwilliam and negotiated with him to release a piece of his land to actually build the first chapel. And this parcel of land where we are now was actually called Tim Croft. So a rather unusual name, but that's what it was called. And the first piece of land was 20 yards by 16 yards. And the trustees actually funded 10 shillings a piece to buy that land from the Earl Fitzwilliam. Now, so the first St John's Church, the first Methodist church, was built in 1815, and within the existing church is an original stone which says, and I'll read this: Seek ye the Lord while he may be found, call upon him while he is near. And then the date 1815. As we went through the Victorian era, the Wesleyan movement grew as the population in Swinton grew. And by 1865, the first church was far too small for the number of people who wanted to attend. The original seating was around 200, and applications for pews were actually having to be refused, having to turn people away. They just could not get them in. So there was a major fundraising effort to actually raise money for the church to be extended, for more seating to be put in, for a gallery to be put in, and very industrious people. Among the articles sold, we've got some references to local companies here, was a large range and a number of ash pans, fire irons, and they were contributed by Hattersley's of the Queen's Stove Grate Foundry in Swinton. There was glassware from the South Yorkshire Glass Works, several grindstones by Mercer's Jenkinson of Mexborough, and various items from the Staffordshire potteries were also made available to raise funds, basically, for the church. So after a big effort, and also whenever we talk about St John's, we must talk about the youth movement and the Sunday school, because the church has always been very active promoting the work with children and juveniles, and the juniors actually were quite instrumental in raising funds for the extensions. Lots of people have got many happy memories of attending Sunday schools here over the years, and there is a great affection for that sort of youth work that went on. So work was done, and then in 1870 that potentially disaster struck, because there was rather a disastrous fire, and there was a meeting of the Sunday school teachers. Actually, they were having their regular meeting, and a meal was being prepared for them. And underneath the church at that time were actually dwellings, and it was in one of those dwellings where the meal was being prepared. And at first they just thought it was a simple chimney fire. They didn't take a great deal of notice of it. But by time rolled on, the whole of the building was flooded with smoke. And I've got a report here of that fire. The door leading from the vestry to the chapel was opened, and the vestry was once filled with dense smoke. Two gentlemen named Waring and Bird tried to enter the chapel but could not owing to the heat and smoke. Afterwards, several people did get in and actually began throwing water on the fire. They noted that police constables Yardy and Pillmore attended and rendered all assistance. A messenger was sent to Extra Fire Brigade to bring the fire engine, which soon arrived. A telegram was also sent to Rotherham asking for attendance of their fire engine. It took them 2 hours to attend from the beginning of the fire. By that time it was extinguished. Residents in the neighbourhood rendered every assistance, but there was extensive damage. All the pews in the chapel were scorched, some totally destroyed, the roof was seriously damaged, and the damage was estimated at between £200 and £300, so quite considerable damage was caused. So we'll just take a look at the original building here, and get the photograph available. So this is how the building would look after the extensions. There we have it, and if you can see from this similar photograph, the building was slightly set back. This is the view of Church Street, and the building was slightly set back from the road at that time, not where the current building is. And we have an interior shot. This is after the additional pews were put in. You see it's very, very crowded, box-type pews, gas lighting, and a very, very sort of limited space available for worship. So after the fire, they built again, and it was decided to actually increase the work and develop a better school room. And in 1882, a series of memorial stones, and we can just look at one of them here, were laid, and this memorial stone was laid by Thomas Roberts of Sheffield on that day in September the 11th, 1882. If we look along here, this direction, a stone laid by Mrs. Thomas Hattersley. Remember, the Hattersleys were supportive of the fundraising efforts. And our next stone is called the Children's Stone, and this was laid by Mr. Thomas Stringer, Senior Superintendent, so that was the person in charge of the Sunday school work. And the stones have been retained on this later build, which is a nice effort. Okay. By 1882, there were some 200 children attending Sunday schools, a huge amount of people, and it was decided to actually apply for some more land from Earl Fitzwilliam. So the ownership of the land moved backwards, and that was pretty much to build toilets on, because that number of people did require those kind of facilities. Remember, we've got people living in houses below this. One of them was a caretaker. So the story then is, we had the enlargement, we had 1815 church, it was enlarged later in the 1860s, the fire increased the size of it, but it was decided it still wasn't ready. And the stairs were steep, and it wasn't practical for the amount of people using it. So the building that time was demolished, and in 1909 the foundation stone was laid for the present St. John's Church, and on the 16th of June in 1910, that was a great day, the existing building was formally opened by Mrs. Gertrude Baker of Grenna House. Now, Mrs. Baker, Mr. and Mrs. Baker were members of the church, and Mr. Baker was actually chairman of Baker and Bessemer, the steelworks at Kilness, and so very, very sort of prominent business people. In some areas of England, Methodism was seen as a sort of working class church, and sort of rivalry with the Church of England. That wasn't the case really in Swinton. It was always quite a mixed support of people from all kinds of backgrounds. Now we're really going to gallop forward in time here, because once the building was created in 1910, opened in 1910, pace continued. We can see we have a typical yearbook here from the 1950s, which lists
which has got a series of advertisements which help to pay for it. It lists the officers of the various churches in the area, and so on and so forth. But we gallop on in time really, and then it was decided actually to once again, with the emphasis on youth, to create another fundraising effort. And we have a document here which is a Swinton St John's Youth House appeal, and it was saying that they needed £13,000, and the plan was to create better youth facilities. And on the May the 30th 1964, we can turn around and what is known as Youth House was created. It's a very useful building still. It's used for all kinds of meetings and activities, and it's been open since 1964. And a further photograph here shows the tea that was provided after the opening of Youth House in 1964. So activities commenced. One of the regular things, again reflecting the youth work, was the regular May Queens. This is a photograph from the 1970s. In the background actually is a memorial window which came from Swinton Bridge Methodist Church, and it's a memorial window to Sidney Drakeford, who was a seaman who was killed in the Arctic during World War II when his ship was struck by a torpedo. Moving forward in time, in the 1990s, the central block of the building was demolished. The memorial stones were retained, as we've already looked at, and in 1993 we had the opening of this middle structure now. So again, busy site, always something going off over the years, being altered and changed down the line. I was very pleased actually to personally bring along so a little bit of help towards this building when I was able to present a cheque which helped to fund the heating of the new community room here at St John's. So we gave it. There was a cheque which helped with the heating costs. I'm going to conclude now because in very recent years the interior of the 1910 building was completely altered, and a fantastic lighting design and new seating and much more accessible space was created in more recent years. So again, credit to the Methodist movement, credit to the Wesleyans who've always been very, very busy, really committed to youth work, and have provided the Swinton area with this building on a site which had the very strange name of back in 1815 of Tim Croft, which I'm afraid I don't know why that was called that. So I hope you found that interesting, and that's a brief history of St John's Church, Swinton.